The rain hammered the roof like 1,000 unspoken regrets, and I stood there in the dim kitchen light, my fingers trembling as I clutched the edge of the sink, staring at the reflection of a woman I barely recognized, eyes swollen from tears I hadn't let fall, lips parted in a silent scream. It was supposed to be just a week, house sit for my best friend Sarah's family, while they jetted off to some sun-soaked European cruise, water the plants, feed the cat, pretend like everything was normal in this perfect slice of suburban America. But then the front door creaked open downstairs, 2 days early, and her voice, Eleanor's voice, Sarah's mother, sliced through the storm. "Hello? Is someone here?" I froze, heart slamming against my ribs like it wanted to escape before she could see it. Eleanor Voss, the woman who'd raised Sarah into the fierce, unapologetic soul she was, the one whose quiet strength had always pulled at something deep inside me, something I'd buried under layers of friendship and denial. She wasn't supposed to be back, not yet, not when I'd come here to unravel in private, to finally admit to myself that the ache in my chest wasn't just missing Sarah, but something far more dangerous, something that had bloomed in stolen glances and lingering hugs at family dinners. Footsteps echoed up the stairs, steady and unhurried, and I wiped my face with the back of my hand, whispering a futile prayer that she'd think I was just the intruder I suddenly felt like. The door to the guest room swung open, and there she was, rain-dampened coat dripping onto the hardwood, her dark hair slicked back from a face etched with exhaustion and that effortless poise that made my stomach twist. Eleanor's eyes, sharp as autumn leaves under street lamps, locked onto mine, and for a split second, the world narrowed to just us, her surprise melting into concern, my mask cracking under the weight of her gaze. "Lila," she said softly, her voice a lifeline in the thunder. "What on earth are you doing here like this?" I couldn't speak at first, the words lodged like thorns in my throat. Sarah had begged me to take the gig, her family's sprawling colonial in Maplewood, New Jersey, with its wraparound porch and ivy-cloaked walls, felt like a sanctuary when she described it. "Mom won't mind." She'd laughed over the phone from the airport, her voice bubbly with pre-vacation excitement. "She's dying to see you anyway, says you're the only one who can make her famous lasagna without burning it." But that was before the call from Sarah last night, the one that shattered the illusion, her voice breaking as she confessed she'd been seeing someone, a guy from work, and oh God, Lila, I think I'm straight.
Or bi.
Or whatever. It doesn't change us, right?
But it did.
It changed everything, because in that moment, curled up on the guest bed with Mr. Whiskers purring indifferently at my feet, I realized the truth I'd been dodging since high school sleepovers. I loved her, not as a friend, but in the bone-deep, world-shifting way that only women like us could understand. And now, with Eleanor standing there, her coat slipping from her shoulders like a shed skin, I felt exposed, raw, as if she'd walked in on the very heart of me bleeding out. She crossed the room in 3 strides, her hand reaching out to brush my arm, gentle, maternal, but with an undercurrent that sent sparks skittering across my skin. "Sweetheart, talk to me. Sarah said you'd be fine here, but you look like you've seen a ghost." Her touch lingered a beat too long, and I pulled back, not because I wanted to, but because the air between us hummed with electricity I couldn't name yet. Eleanor was 46, widowed young when Sarah's dad died in a car wreck on the turnpike, raising her daughter alone in this house that echoed with memories. She ran a small bookstore downtown, the kind with creaky floors and handwritten recommendations, and she'd always treated me like the second daughter she never had. But there were moments, her laugh lines crinkling when I'd help shelve books, the way her fingers would graze mine over a shared coffee, that made me wonder if she saw me as more. Or if I was just projecting my own fractured heart onto the safest harbor I knew. "It's nothing," I lied, forcing a smile that felt like glass. "Just the storm. Jet lag from pretending to be responsible." She didn't buy it. Her eyes searched mine, pulling secrets from the shadows. Eleanor had that gift, the kind that came from years of piecing together broken spines in novels and lives. She nodded toward the kitchen. "Come on."
Tea.
And then you tell me or I start guessing, and you know I'm terrible at that. Her smile was tentative, a bridge over the chasm, and I followed her down the stairs, the cat weaving between our legs like a furry chaperone. The kitchen was a haven of copper pots and herb-scented air, the kind of space that whispered of Sunday brunches and whispered confidences. Eleanor flicked on the kettle, her movements fluid despite the travel-worn lines under her eyes, and I perched on a stool, watching the rain streak the window like tears we both refused to shed. Sarah called. I blurted finally, the words tumbling out before I could cage them. From Paris.
She's
Happy. My voice cracked on the last word, and Eleanor's hand stilled on the mug, her gaze softening with that maternal ache she wore so well. Happy how? She asked, pouring steaming chamomile into 2 cups, the steam curling like ghosts between us. I hesitated, the confession burning my tongue. How do you tell a mother her daughter's joy is your undoing? But Eleanor slid the mug toward me, her fingers brushing mine deliberately this time, and the dam broke. She's in love, Eleanor. With a man. And it hurts because I thought. I stopped, choking on the truth, but she leaned across the island, her face inches from mine, voice a velvet murmur. You thought what, Lila? That she felt what you do? The world tilted. How did she know? Had Sarah sensed it, whispered it to her in some late-night call? Or was it written on me like a brand, this quiet, consuming love for women that I'd hidden behind straight-laced boyfriends and easy laughs? Eleanor's eyes held no judgment, only a mirror of her own hidden depths, and in that moment, as thunder rattled the panes, I saw her, not as Sarah's mom, but as Eleanor, the woman who'd danced alone in this kitchen to old jazz records, who'd rebuilt a life from ashes. I've always known, she said softly, her thumb tracing the rim of her cup.
About you.
About how you look at her. But more than that, I've seen how you look at the world, like it's both a battlefield and a poem. My breath hitched, the air thick with unsaid things. She reached out again, this time cupping my cheek, her palm warm and calloused from turning pages, and I leaned into it without thinking, the contact igniting a fire I'd long denied. You're not alone in that, Lila, she whispered, her voice trembling for the first time. Not here. Not with me. The kettle whistled its final note, but neither of us moved, suspended in the fragile space where friendship blurred into something achingly more, a confession not just of hearts, but of souls weary from hiding. We talked until the storm softened to a drizzle, words spilling like the rain outside, my fumbling college crushes on roommates who'd never known, the fear of losing Sarah if I ever spoke my truth, the way this house had always felt like a confessional. Eleanor shared, too, her own youth in the 90s, stolen kisses in Greenwich Village bars before she met Sarah's father, the marriage that was love but not all of her, the loneliness that bloomed after his death like weeds in cracked pavement. I thought I'd buried that part of me, she admitted, staring into her tea as if it held the map to her regrets. For Sarah. For normalcy. But seeing you tonight, it's like looking at the girl I used to be, fierce and unbroken. The clock ticked past midnight, and still we lingered, the space between us shrinking with every shared breath. When she finally stood to rinse the mugs, her hip brushed mine, accidental yet electric, and I caught her wrist, my pulse thundering in my ears. Eleanor. I breathed, the name a prayer and a plea. Her eyes met mine, dark and stormy, and she didn't pull away. Instead, she turned fully toward me, her free hand rising to tuck a strand of my damp hair behind my ear, fingers lingering on my neck. Lila, she echoed, voice husky with the weight of years unspoken. What are we doing? Kissing her was like falling into a dream I'd never dared voice, soft at first, tentative, her lips tasting of chamomile and salt, then deepening as the barriers crumbled. Her hands framed my face, pulling me closer, and I melted against her, the world narrowing to the press of her body, the sigh she let escape into my mouth. It was wrong. It was right. It was everything I'd craved in the quiet hours, a woman who saw me, who held me without question. We broke apart gasping, foreheads pressed together, her breath mingling with mine in the steamy air.
This.
We can't, she murmured, even as her fingers traced my jaw. Sarah. Sarah's in Paris, I whispered fiercely, my hands sliding to her waist, feeling the curve of her under the thin blouse. And right now, it's just us. Just this. She searched my eyes, conflict warring with desire, but then she nodded, a small surrender, and pulled me toward the living room couch, the fire we'd never lit crackling in our veins instead. The night unfolded in whispers and touches, a slow unraveling under the blanket of rain. We didn't rush, God. No, this was too precious, too long denied. Her fingers mapped the freckles on my shoulders like constellations, her lips following with reverent kisses that made me arch and gasp. You're beautiful, she breathed against my skin, voice thick with wonder, and I believed her, for the first time, because in her arms, I was whole. I traced the lines of her body, learning the stories etched there, the faint scar from Sarah's birth, the softness of her belly from years of quiet resilience, and she trembled under my touch, eyes shining with tears that weren't from sorrow. By dawn, as the sky lightened to a bruised gray, we lay tangled in sheets we'd dragged downstairs, her head on my chest, my fingers combing through her hair. What now? I asked, the question of fragile thread in the quiet. Eleanor lifted her head, her smile bittersweet, fingers lacing with mine. We figured out. Together. But Lila, this isn't just a night. It's a beginning. And in that promise, amid the scent of rain-soaked earth wafting through the cracked window, I felt the first stirrings of hope, a love not stolen, but claimed, in the heart of a home that had always known our secrets. But hope is a fragile thing, and as the sun climbed higher, so did the shadows of consequence. Sarah's texts buzzed in from across the ocean. Miss you, Lil. How's Mom's place? Each one a reminder of the tightrope we walked. Eleanor and I stole moments in the days that followed. Coffee in the garden where her roses bloomed defiant against the autumn chill, her hand slipping into mine under the table. Evenings cooking side by side. Laughter bubbling as flour dusted our cheeks, and kisses interrupted the simmer of sauces. It was intoxicating, this secret world we'd carved, where her touch erased the loneliness I'd carried like a second skin. Yet doubt crept in like fog off the Hudson. One afternoon, rifling through old photo albums in the attic for a laugh, I found letters, faded envelopes tied with ribbon, addressed to Eleanor from a woman named Clara, postmarked from San Francisco in the late 80s. Words of longing, of loves lost to convention, and suddenly the pieces clicked. Eleanor's silences, her fierce protectiveness over Sarah's choices. She caught me with them, her face paling as she snatched the bundle away. You weren't meant to see those, she said, voice tight, but I stepped closer, cupping her face. I want to know all of you, Eleanor. The parts you hid, too. We sat on the dusty floor amid boxes of forgotten Christmases, and she poured it out. The wild college summers, the affair that ended in heartbreak when Clara chose safety over them, the marriage to David that was companionship, not fire. I loved him, she confessed, tears carving tracks down her cheeks. But it wasn't this. She gestured between us, the air charged. This is what I grieved most after he died, not just him, but the woman I could have been. I kissed her then, fierce and forgiving, tasting the salt of old wounds. You can be her now, with me. But the world outside our bubble pressed in. Sarah announced an early return, visa issues, she said in a video call, her face glowing with that new love shine that twisted my gut. Can't wait to see you both. Mom, you better not have let Lila reorganize my closet again. Eleanor's laugh was forced, her hand squeezing mine out of frame, and as the call ended, panic flickered in her eyes. What do we tell her? I asked, but she shook her head, pulling me close. Not yet. Let me have this a little longer. The night before Sarah's flight landed, tension coiled like a spring. We made love in the master bedroom for the first time, her bed, with its crisp linens and faint lavender scent, slow and deliberate, bodies speaking what words couldn't. Afterward, wrapped in each other's arms, she traced patterns on my back. "I love you, Lila," she whispered, the words a thunderclap in the silence. Not like a mother figure, like a woman loves another. Tears pricked my eyes, joy and terror mingling. "I love you too, more than I ever knew possible." Morning brought the crunch of tires on gravel, Sarah's Uber pulling up with her duffel slung over one shoulder, grin wide as the Jersey sky. She burst through the door, hugging me first, fierce, familiar, and I held on a beat too long, inhaling the airport on her skin, whispering, "Welcome home." Eleanor watched from the kitchen, her smile a masterpiece of composure, but when Sarah turned to her, arms open, the embrace lingered, mother and daughter swaying like they could freeze time. Dinner was a minefield of normalcy. Pasta al dente, wine flowing, stories of Paris croissants and Eiffel Tower sunsets. Sarah chattered about her boyfriend, Mark, tall, funny, the kind of guy who'd fit into this life like a puzzle piece, and I nodded, smiling through the ache, Eleanor's foot brushing mine under the table in silent solidarity. But as plates cleared, Sarah leaned back, eyes narrowing playfully. "Okay, spill. You two look different. Glowy. What's the secret?" The room stilled. Eleanor's hand tightened on her napkin, my heart a war drum. "Just good company," I said lightly, but Sarah's gaze sharpened, flicking between us.
Mom?
"Lila?" Eleanor met her eyes, steady as oak. "Sarah, honey, there's something we need to talk about." The words hung, heavy as the storm that had started it all. Sarah's face shifted, confusion, then dawning hurt, her fork clattering to the plate. "What? You two? Together?" The question cracked like lightning, and Eleanor nodded, reaching for her hand.
Yes.
"And we didn't plan it, but it's real. Lila's become everything to me." Sarah recoiled, chair scraping back, tears welling. "My best friend? And my mom? How, when?" The accusations flew. Betrayal. Lies. The sacred lines we'd crossed. I tried to explain. The pain of her call, the unexpected pull toward Eleanor, but she shook her head, voice breaking. "You were supposed to be my safe place, Lila. And you." She turned to Eleanor, anguish raw. "After Dad, you promised no more secrets." The fight spilled into the living room, voices rising over the hum of the fridge, Sarah pacing like a caged storm. "This is messed up. She's my age, Mom. What does that even say?" Eleanor's response was fire, defending our love, her own buried truths unearthed. "It says I'm human, Sarah. That love doesn't follow your timelines or rules." I stood silent at first, then stepped in, voice steady despite the shatter inside. "I love her, Sarah. Not to hurt you, but because she sees me, the real me, the parts one hid from even you." She stormed out to the porch, slamming the door, and Eleanor and I followed, rain starting again in fat, punishing drops. We sat on the swing, Sarah between us, the silence a chasm. Minutes stretched to hours, her sobs mingling with the downpour, until finally, she turned to me, eyes red-rimmed.
Did you
ever feel that way about me? Before? The truth clawed out.
Yes.
And it broke me when you didn't. But Eleanor, she's my now, my future. Sarah looked at her mother then, really looked, and something shifted, a softening, a recognition. I need time to process that my family's changing. Again. We talked through the night, raw and unfiltered. Sarah's own fears of labels, her relief in loving Mark but guilt over leaving me behind, Eleanor's apologies for the secrets, promises of transparency, my vows to fight for this, for us. Dawn broke misty and merciful, and as Sarah hugged us both, tentative, but real, she whispered, "I want you happy. Both of you. Even if it scares me." In the weeks that followed, the house transformed, not into perfection, but authenticity. Sarah stayed, navigating awkward dinners that bloomed into laughter, her hand occasionally squeezing mine in solidarity. Eleanor and I built slowly. Walks in the arboretum where leaves turned gold, her bookstore becoming our haven, shelves rearranged to make space for my graphic novels beside her poetry. One evening, as snow dusted the windows, our first winter together, Sarah raised a glass at dinner. To family, the kind that chooses each other. Her smile was genuine, eyes bright with the grace of growth. And in Eleanor's arms that night, under quilts heavy with promise, I knew we'd forged something unbreakable, a love that had weathered storms, mended fractures, and bloomed in the unlikeliest soil. Not just romance, but redemption for the girls we'd been, the women we'd become. In the quiet heart of America, where secrets once hid in shadows, we'd stepped into the light, hand in hand, whole at last.